think a lot of us realize that number one, California was named after the mythical African queen, Queen Calafia, and that before the U.S. purchased California, when the U.S. belonged to Mexico, San Jose, 17% of San Jose was of African descent. That's how many Africans were here. Our roots are very deep in California. We were here before the Americans were. Back then, in the early 1800s, to be a Californian meant to be of Indian, Spanish, and African descent. To be a Californian meant to be, that was a racial group. The Pico Rivera family that settled California, that was the governor that governed California under Mexico while it was still part of Mexico, was Spanish, Indian, and African. We're Californians. We're a blend. We're blended. It's interesting. If you check the archives, you can see records, census records, names in, what is it, 1856, I think, 1855. The census records will show names, and in the race column, it'll say negrita or negrito, black female, black male. That's, and there was no bad connotations to it. And then a year later, after the U.S. purchased California, those same people, you look in their race column and they have written down mestiza, mestizo, because when the U.S. purchased California, they made a law that no one of African descent could own land. So we had been living, Mexicans, Indians, and Africans had been living here and thriving in California for years, for decades before the U.S. bought it, just like in Florida. Florida used to be a country all of its own. It was Indian and black. And the Seminole Wars were about bringing Africans out of Florida to enslave them. But at one time in Florida, there were black forts. As a matter of fact, there was Fort Negro. There were cities, and there was a form of government based on West African government. This country has been pitting Mexicans and Indians against blacks for hundreds of years. We have a very close connection, and they are making sure to focus on the divide and conquer, so we don't go back, so we don't realize that we have much more in common than we do have apart. I hope more of us, thank you for reading history. It sounds like you're well read. I wish more of us would do that and realize that this whole divide and conquer thing is old school. And as long as we stay, blacks, Indians, and Mexicans stay divided, then that's how long we will not be focusing in on education, housing, employment, medical needs. So thank you very much for bringing up the truth. Keep reading, little sister. Peace.